I found a friend who called to me. His love is ever true. I love to tell how he lifted me and what his grace can do for you. Sing by his power divine, sing to new heights of life, like no sweet our joy is coming for us. Sing, sing, sing. Let's do the last verse, verse 4. I found a friend who would come for me. His love is ever new. I love to tell how he loved me and what his grace will do for you. Sing by his power divine, sing to new heights of life, like no sea my joy is complete for us. Sing, sing, sing. Just one page over 331. Great is thy faithfulness, page 331. On first. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with me. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Verse 3. Pardon for sin and unreserved endurance, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all night with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Our last hymn today will be page 317. What Love, page 317. First. There's a love beyond human comprehension. There's a love that satisfies the yearning heart. And to share his love with us was God's intention. When he made this world and formed us and the soul. Gentlemen, are y'all up to singing Kneel at the Cross? Have we got enough of us? Y'all come on up, gentlemen. Red Book, page 193. 193. We slammed this morning. It's going to be almost a duet right here. So far. Quartet. We got a little more quartet. Yeah.
Come on, Webb. Here comes the same.
All right. We're going to do all four of us, brother? No. We're going to do first, second, and
Lucky
last.
we'll get through tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to make it. We're going to do all right.
193.
193, Kneel at the Cross.
Kneel at the cross, Christ will meet you there. Come while he waits for you. Listen to his voice, leave him with your care, and begin life anew. Kneel at the cross.
eating his breakfast or something. A little kid comes up to him, and the little kid taps him on the arm and says, "Are you a hero?" And the man kind of looks at him. I think he says no. And the little boy says, "That man over there said you was." And the man over there was a soldier in uniform. And he was, of course, young compared to the old guy. The old guy, he had tattoos, and I believe it was Vietnam era. And they were both thanking him for his service. Some of the Vietnam veterans, when they come back, they were protesters, and they got treated very badly. And that's sad. We've had a lot of wars since then, and there's always some knothead that thinks they know better than everybody else, that's against everything. And I don't proceed to say that I know when we ought to be at war, when we ought not be at war. But I know when our government calls us, and one of the things we find, we're to honor our government, and we are to obey them. And now, if you are a true person that says that you religiously could not go to war, I probably was moved to whatever they was going to send me to. They was going to send us all to Vietnam, but from combat to the being a military policeman, a security, because I had a very high clearance, and we were involved with a lot of things that the regular were not involved in. But the reason being, when they ask us, could we kill? And they didn't ask us until we had already gotten to the rifle range, and already they saw how we were able to handle things. And I told them only under certain circumstances. I couldn't wantonly kill. I just couldn't. I said, if there's a firefight, I could shoot back. I could try to save another person's life, but I'm not sure I could kill somebody to save my own. And they asked if it was a religious objection. I said, no. It's my nature. It's my personality. And I just don't know that I could kill somebody else, take their life to give myself a little longer to live. And I think that's the reason why things moved for me the way that it did. Did I turn this on, brother? No. All right, let me do that. I don't see Brother Nugent, and normally when I see him, I remember to turn it on. But hopefully they're all right. If somebody knows, let me know. They are, okay. Camping trip with family, good. Well, brother, if you're listening to this now or later, we love you and we miss you. And Sister Nugent as well. I met both of you. All right. And to all of you that listen, we appreciate you. Glad you listen when you're not here. But, it's one of those things to be trained to kill. And that's what our military is. Now, I know that most of them are going to be cooks, office workers, but a cook has to be trained to kill. They have to go through the basic training. They have to learn all that. Man, if they get overrun, they've got to be trained. And they have to know how to put a gas mask on. We were taught that you save yourself first, and that was hard for me to understand. Said you put your gas mask on before you give the alarm. I said, why? Why not give the alarm? Because that 2 seconds may take your life and you won't be able to help anybody. And that was hard for me to understand, because I would have wanted to have warned people first. But, you grab your mask, you can holler, but you'd never stop. You put that mask on, you clear it, and make sure you're not breathing in any poisonous gas. You're trained for all of that, and you know what can happen to you. It doesn't matter if you're the company clerk. It don't matter if you're a doctor or a nurse. You have to be trained for all of that. And it changes your life. It changes it completely. And I'm thankful that the Lord was with you, with me, with our veterans. I know there are many that have suffered much, and of course so many lost their lives, and that's another holiday, another time of remembrance. But we do need to show honor, never disgrace. That bunch that spoke against the Vietnam veterans when they came home from Vietnam, they were a disgrace themselves. They tried to disgrace those soldiers who did what they were ordered to do. And not everything goes the way it's supposed to in war. Not everything goes the way it's supposed to in anything. And so, to disgrace our military was such a terrible, terrible thing. And I trust that you understand that we love you. We care for you. And if you need help, we want you to get help. If there's any kind of help that you need, we do want you to get it. Romans chapter number 13, I'm going to try to cut a lot out of the message today. The message is simply honor to whom honor is due. And I preach a title like that nearly every year around this time. I think a couple years back, I have this one. I don't know when I preached it, but it says a few good men. And I'm sure it was about the time of Veterans Day, maybe 10, 12 years ago that I preached this one. By the way, do you know it's 400 years ago this year that the Pilgrims came to America? 400 years ago this year. Anniversaries and holidays are important. And then the first Thanksgiving was, and I said came to America, that's not exactly correct, that they had the first Thanksgiving. And so take 400 years back to that 21 year, and this is the year they had the first Thanksgiving. Pilgrims came before that and went through a winter and different things. And I know that today, modern history says that the Pilgrims were a bunch of killers, that they went out and killed Indians and did all of that. The Pilgrims never did that. The Pilgrims worked with the Indians, helped the Indians survive. The Indians helped the Pilgrims survive. They worked together. Remember, the Pilgrims come across, they wanted to get the gospel of Christ to a new nation and wanted a place where they could worship God. Now, there were some Puritans that did the opposite. And I won't go into all of that. That's some ancient history. But we need to remember to be thankful for the heritage. This country has put out more Christian missionaries than any other country in the world, all because of that heritage of our pilgrims that came across. And they were given the name Pilgrims because they knew this world was not their home. They weren't coming to stay and live forever here in America. They was coming to do the work of God, waiting for their Savior to return. But we need to honor those to whom honor is due. And look, if you will, down to verse number 7. I said chapter 13, verse number 7. Render therefore, and again, as Brother Andrew told us, it's there for a reason, so we're not going to look at it today, but there's a reason, the verses before. Therefore, to all render to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. We need to pay our debts, and there are people that we need to honor. And let me take about 60 seconds, about 1 minute. Who are the people that we are to honor? Who do you think those people are? Kids, adults, either one? Parents. That's a commandment, isn't it? Honor your parents. Who else are we to honor? The authority over us, government. And not only government, but the preachers, the spiritual leaders. And here it was said what? Honor God. Okay, honor God. There are a number of people or things that we need to honor. We need to give honor to. Honor is one of those words that we don't use a lot, and I want to give you a couple of different definitions or descriptions. And it says honor is defined as showing esteem for one deserving of respect, attention, or obedience. And then this one, and this was not out of the old antique Webster's dictionary, but it was out of an old dictionary, and it says the supreme level of honor is reserved for God alone. For God alone. So we need to honor, and we need to pay our debts. We need to honor. You won't see it. If I made this a handout, you would. but I put just a small picture, an image there that says, honor God with your life. And I'm going to change that. I'm going to make a different one, totally different than that says, honor God with your life, with your lips, and with your love. What is the greatest commandment? What does the Bible tell us the greatest commandment is? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and it just goes on. It's with your heart. We need to love God. It needs to be a love that comes from the heart. Let me get into this part of the message very quickly, and we'll end up this morning, I believe, dealing with some ways to honor God. If I was to ask you to, some ways to honor your father and your mother, then I would hope that you would tell me that the best way to honor your father and mother is to treat them right, not to talk back, not to give them sass. Well, my dad said, if you give your mama any sass, I'm going to give you something on your jaw. That was us boys, and we knew we'd get a knuckle sandwich. There was no doubt about it. He said, you don't dishonor your mother. You don't give her sass. And she works hard, and she's your mother. And my dad, boy, he loved his mother, and I think he loved Mom, but I think he loved his mother more than he loved Mom. And he didn't mistreat my mother, his wife. But boy, if he was working anywhere near the area where they lived, and we were probably only about 15 miles away, but if he was working in a town driving his dump truck that was anywhere close, he would drive by. He'd tell him maybe he was going to be back late from lunch, or when he got off work, he'd drive by and go and sit down, drink coffee, and hug them and kiss them, Mom and Dad, and tell them he loved them. He did that. Well, we ought to do that. We ought to, you go by and see him, you ought to give your mom and dad a hug and a kiss. You say, well, Dad don't like to be kissed. Well, shake his hand. And my dad didn't like to be kissed. I have to tell this. Miss Jan will tell you it's the truth. I believe she remembers this. When I first took her to meet my mom and dad, had to take her roommate because we was in a Bible college, and the rules were you didn't go off campus alone, and we had to get permission from her parents, my parents, and from the chaperone's parents, and so her roommate rode with us to Indiana. We got there, and if I remember right, Dad was sitting in his chair, and Mom had gotten up, and of course I hugged Mom. I went over and shook Dad's hand because he didn't want us to hug or kiss him, and Jan hugged Mom, and she went over and put her arms around Dad and kissed him, and he looked surprised at first. And my sister was there, my oldest sister, and she said, he won't let us do that. And Jan said, I didn't give him a choice. She just went and hugged and kissed him. And the next time she come in, she hugged Mom, and Dad said, where's mine? But he didn't want us kids to do it. He was just glad she would do it. Shake their hand if they don't want it. Let them know you love them. Honor them. Respect them. And I tell you, sometimes you say, well, they don't live right. I'm a Christian. They're not. That don't matter. They don't treat me right. That gets tough, but it still don't matter. You honor them the best that you can. And if you don't, you're not being obedient to the Lord. The Bible tells us that this is the first commandment with promises, honoring our parents, and that we may live long on the earth. And of course, that we want to be blessed for honoring our parents. I remember a preacher from North Carolina many years ago. He was in his 60s. He was in a wheelchair. He said, I won't make 70. He said, and I'm not complaining. He said, when I got saved, he said, I was already in a wreck. Not a wreck car, but his physically health and everything else messed up for life. And he said there was one reason for it all. He said, I dishonored my mama and I dishonored my daddy. I treated them like dirt. He said, I thought they owed me a living, and he said, I went out and told bad things on them that wasn't true. And he said, all these things. Now, he said, I'm reaping the benefit, the payment of my sin to my mama and to my daddy. He said, I wished I'd have been like my brother. He said, my brother will live to an old age. And I think at 67, he died and passed away. His brother lived to be 92 or 93, and his brother preached the whole time. I won't tell you who they were. Preached on the radio, had a worldwide ministry, and yet one disobeyed and did wrong to his parents. We need to learn to honor our parents. You see, other than God, they're the first ones we owe honor to in this life. Other than God, they're the first. And they need to be honored very closely to as much as we honor God. Now, if you don't honor God, you still need to honor your parents. But you need to honor God as well. I'm going to give you just a few things. I'm going to read a couple of these verses. I'm not going to ask you to turn, but Leviticus 19:32, the Bible says, "Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head." Now, the word H-O-A-R-Y, you know what that means? White. It's old timers. Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head and honor the face of the old man, and fear thy God, I am the Lord. The third group that I believe we need to honor more than the others, and I'm going to put this right under parents, and that's old people. You need to honor your brother and your sister. That's a lifetime deal. But old people, you need to honor them. You know, maybe it's going by the nursing home. I don't know if any of them have opened back up, but I remember when the Lord first moved us here, we had always been attending nursing home services and meetings and stuff. Our whole life, not our whole life, but married life, with just a few years not being able to do that. And boy, Miss Rose said, "Come to the nursing home ministry." And boy, we loved it. And she would take beads and things so that they could put beads together. And I know I've told the story where she made a bracelet for one of the Pentecostal ladies. And the lady thought it was great until she remembered she was Pentecostal. And so she didn't keep it. But she took in all kind of stuff. She took in hand lotion. But she took her hand and just put it on their hands and rubbed it in, made them feel better, rubbed their feet, did all kind of things for them. Of course, she'd been a nurse for so many years. She had moved their pillows around, those that were bedridden. Always, she had a heart for those people. We need to love those people, whether in the nursing home. Maybe it's going by and singing. Man, I hope at Christmas maybe we'll be able to do something to one of the nursing homes or some of the shut-ins or something and sing and give God the glory, but honor those older people who have gone before us. And I remember coming up, I hate to say it, but most of the people in the nursing home that my mother worked at, and I was in the nursing home every week working with my mother. She'd tell me to go get stuff and to help somebody, and wasn't making a bit of money. It was just those were older people, and we need to honor them. And most of them couldn't read or write. They'd go down we'd give them a songbook, and half of them have the songbook upside down. They knew the songs, but they didn't know how to read. And boy, they knew the Lord too. They could quote verses with you, even though they couldn't read a verse. Those old people, we need to have time for them. And then the next one I'll put is not you kids. We'll maybe get to y'all later. But to the spouses, husbands and wives. Of course, in 1 Peter 3:7, likewise ye husbands dwell with them according to knowledge. Now, I get in trouble every time I read this because I have to say, I asked an older preacher what knowledge that is. And he said, it was lost in antiquity. We don't know what knowledge it is, how to dwell with a woman. But that was an older preacher that said it. I'm just repeating it. But giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together with the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. Hey, we're supposed to give honor to the wife as the weaker vessel. Now, that doesn't mean that weaker things are cheap or not important. Some of the weak things in your house, like china and things like that, they can be very expensive. They're very beautiful. They have a tremendous purpose, but they are not as strong as we are, and as the men and the women are. Now, there are some cases where the women are stronger than the men. I understand that. But generally speaking, and we are supposed to give honor. Ephesians 5:33, Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence, that's another word for honor, her husband. We are to honor one another. Now, don't ask the wife if the husband is honoring her. And don't ask the husband if the wife is honoring him. Kids, don't go home and don't ask Grandpa, are you honoring Grandma? Don't do that, all right? You remember what's your job when you get there, all right? Or if you're there now, then just do your job. We're to honor church leaders. 1 Thessalonians 5:12 talks about the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor. That's the church leaders. Honor the police, the military, the first responders. And I've just used Romans 13:7 and put them under all of those who are in authority. Even the police. I have to say, I have a bad. I'm rebellious. Years ago, I was trying to get to a revival meeting I was supposed to preach, and the police had the streets blocked off, and the policeman said, "Turn around and move," and go back the other way. The city is shut down. And I said, well, I got out of the car, and I said, well, tell me how I can get to, he said, move your car and get out of the way. I was supposed to do what he said. I wasn't supposed to be holding up traffic, arguing with him, trying to find a way to get in. Of course, my wife and her parents and one of my kids was in that town. And there was no way to get in at that time. A car tank had ruptured, and there was poisonous gas throughout the city. They will be evacuated if they can't get out. Move. And I finally got back in my vehicle and turned around. I shouldn't have been that pushy. Now, I wanted to know, it was important to me. But that policeman had his job to do and could have very well arrested me for not obeying his orders. We need to honor them. We need to honor others before ourselves. You see, we so many times put ourselves first. Now, I know there are times when you got to take care of yourself. I'm not saying that you need to be a monk somewhere or whatever the women are that put themselves, is it a cloister, where they put themselves into silence and put themselves away to where they're not around people, but they pray and read the Bible and do things like that. I'm not talking about that. But we need to treat others before ourselves. Honor them before ourselves. Romans 12 and verse 10 says, be kindly affectionate one to another with brotherly love in honor, preferring one another. We need to, in honor, prefer others over our own self. And Mark 12 and verse 30 and 31 tells us we need to love our neighbors as ourselves. 1 Peter 2 and verse 17 says, honor all men, love the brotherhood, and fear the king, fear God, honor the king. And so we are to honor other people, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. But now, let's not go to any more of those individuals we're supposed to honor, but let's look at some ways we can honor God. The Bible is very clear that we are to honor God. And the first 4 of the 10 commandments gives us ways to honor God. Have no other gods before Him. Worship Him alone. We don't take His name in vain. We honor Him. And of course, to honor means we lift up. We glorify. Somewhere in my notes I have it written that I'll use the words honor and glorify. Sometimes the word glorify is used to honor God. And the word honor is used in some places, but mostly the word honor is about men. Mostly the word glorify is about God. And I want to give you, if I can, very quickly, 5, 6, 7, or 8, and listen quickly. We'll be finished in just a minute. In Isaiah 43, in verse number 7, the Bible says, everyone that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. Why were we created? For God's glory. We do not fulfill our purpose in this world, no matter what else we do, no matter how successful you are. If you become a brain surgeon, develop new techniques that save thousands upon thousands or millions upon millions of lives, If you don't honor God, you've not fulfilled your purpose. If you do something in another field that nobody else has ever done, and you devise some new technique or some new product that makes life simple for those that are hurting or that need help, you've done a great job. But to honor God is the greatest. We do that through a lot of different ways. And of course, to honor God is to recognize and acknowledge His glory. You see, I've written it this way. How can we give glory to the King of glory? He's already the King of glory. And Psalm 24 verse 8 says the King of glory. He already is that. So can we add glory to His glory? No, number one, we just recognize it. And two, we acknowledge it to Him and to others. So sometimes it's praise Him. On the back, don't turn, but your bulletin, on the back of your bulletin, it has praise written out and different things, P-R-A-I-S-E, saying different things. But acknowledge Him. Number one, how do we do it? With our lips. Psalm 63 and verse number 3 tells us that we are to sing songs and glorify God. And the second one, we're to obey His word. In Malachi chapter 2, the priests were ungodly. They weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And so the Lord tells them, He says in verse 1, "And now, O ye priests, this commandment is for you." You know, every now and then when I'm studying for a message, man, I'll think, that's it. And then Saturday night or Sunday morning, the Lord will say, that one was for you. And I'll say, oh, that one was for me. And so the Lord has to give me something else, and I have to apply those things that I'd studied all week to my heart, to my life. He's telling the priest, this one's not for you to give to others. This is for you. They weren't right. It says, if ye will not hear, if ye will not lay it to heart, and that's the key, is laying it to heart. Because the Lord wants us to serve Him with all of our heart. To give glory unto my name. If you won't do that, saith the Lord of hosts, I will even send a curse upon you. And these next few words, I want you to think about this. This is Malachi 2, verse 2, about the middle of verse 2, or towards the bottom. And I will curse your blessing. I'll curse your blessing. I don't know how many people that I've seen in my lifetime that have come into a lot of money, inheritance, different things. I mean, to a lot of it. You know, the fellow in the Bible, he had worked hard, I'm sure, all of his life, but he wanted to build bigger barns and greater barns. And the Lord said, this night, thy fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. You see, if we don't follow the Lord, He's going to send a curse on our blessings. I've seen people millionaires one day and broke the next. I've seen people ready for retirement and the stock market drops and they get scared, cash what little bit they got left in. If they'd had to have 10 more years to wait, but if they'd have waited 10 more years, they'd have been right back where they was. But they didn't have a retirement anymore. God will curse your blessings. Yea, I will have cursed them already because ye did not lay it to heart. Proverbs 8 and verse 18 says, riches and honor are with me. Yea, and then he uses a word, durable riches. What's the word durable doing in the Bible? Durable riches, it says, and righteousness. That word durable, the first usage that it normally is used in the Old Testament and the Hebrew, that word durable means antique or of old. Now, when you think about that, you know what I think of? First thought, I think it's something that's wore out, something your great-grandparents had. But wait a minute. He's talking about riches. He's talking about blessing your riches where it becomes a family dynasty, handed down one to another, if you lay it to heart. If you don't lay it to heart, he puts a curse on your riches, your blessings. Oh, it's amazing. It's something that's passed down. It's what we call old money. Jonathan is looking at a house to buy it. I guess the company's going to buy it, but looking at a house to buy it, he said, this lady comes from old money. From old money. He said, I knew what he meant. It meant that her parents, her grandparents, and the parents before them, they were big shots and they had a lot of money. He said he looked her up on the internet and said where she was originally from was a plantation house up in, I believe he said, Virginia. Come from old money, from antique. God can make your family blessed from now on if you lay it to heart, if you'll honor and glorify him. And boy, that's what we need, we need a lineage of Christianity, of godliness, whether it be in finances or not, but we need that lineage passed down one to the other if we'll honor and glorify God. Let's bow our